Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining our diagnostic training session today. Now, what you're about to see is a pre-recorded training session we did over in the United States. But be assured that a lot of the material that we cover is really applicable to any automotive application. So just be aware that yes, it is a lot of North American vehicles, but a lot of the same principles apply over in the UK as well. Now, if you have any questions, if you're watching this during the premiere, you can just leave it in the chat. We'll be monitoring that. And if you're watching this after the premiere, then just feel free to leave a comment underneath the video, and we'll get to those as we can as well. So my name is Jason Gabrenas. I'm one of Snap-on Diagnostics technical trainers. I've been in the training department since 2013, traveling around North America, helping techs and shop owners get the most out of their diagnostic equipment. Before I did that, it was a couple years as a diagnostic sales rep at Snap-on, so I had a group of about 30 different franchisees I worked with, as well as the shops that they service, in order to help everyone get the most out of their diagnostic needs. Then before I did that, it was 8 years at Subaru, so I worked in a dealership, and over time, I guess, I just became that default diag guy in the shop. So I always ended up having the drivability problems, the intermittent problems, the weird wiring problems that would show up on those cars. And that's really where I cut my diagnostic teeth, was trying to figure out all those weird head scratcher type cars that had come into my bay. Then before that, a bunch of other miscellaneous wrenching jobs. Been a little over 25 years under hood experience for me. So our topic at hand today is getting the most out of your Snap-on scan tool. And there's quite a few unique features and functions of a Snap-on scan tool. And some things you might not realize are there. Some things you might have known were there, but just forgot were there at this point. And we'll talk about some exclusive things that you can only get with the Snap-on scan tool as well. So the first thing to getting the most out of your Snap-on scan tool, though, is going to be updates. All right. So always keeping your tool up to date means you don't miss out on all of the internet-based things that exist out there, data services we call them. As well as, say, security link, right? I won't be able to hook up to Chryslers and Nissans and Mercedes and stuff that use that function. Also, fast track intelligent diagnostics, sure track experience-based information. All of that stuff. Uploads to your Altus cloud and sharing pre-scans, post-scans, ADAS reports, things like that. So there are a lot of advantages to making sure you stay up to date. And most of our, well, all of our current tools, but in the last couple generations at least of these tools, you're able to update over the air, right? So the Windows-based tools have always been able to do that. But the non-Windows-based tools like the Solus, the Triton, the Apollo, the MT2600, those tools are able to be updated over the air. And its process is a little bit different than it would be on, say, a Zeus, right? So here is the scan tool. This is a Triton. And you'll notice that it says it's on 25.4 software, which would be the current number that we have out there. It needs an update, right? So 25.4, and then we pushed out 25.4b as an update a couple weeks ago, and actually 25.4c should be coming out right about this week, actually. But got to make sure you're on Wi-Fi. Got to make sure the Wi-Fi is connected. Now it's going to take a minute to do the handshake with your router or whatever. So just make sure that the bars are nice and solid, not flashing or anything. And then, a minute or two later, as long as there's an update available, you will see the download icon. So that little down arrow indicates that it's downloading software. And in the case of 25.4b, it's a pretty quick patch. 25.4c is going to take a little longer. So what I always do is recommend you just, if you notice that it's downloading, just leave it on, leave it connected to power. Usually overnight is best, just to let the download come through. And then by the time you get in the morning, it should be ready. Once it is ready, you'll get a little check mark up there, and you'll also see a little dot on your tools. So we'll click on Tools. And then you'll see we have a software update with a little dot there. That means there's a software update waiting for you. And then performance update there, 25.4b, that's what got downloaded. And that, like I said, that was a small download, 15 megs. Install it now, accept the terms, agree and continue. It'll update itself. And then when it's done, it'll ask you to restart. And then when you restart, you can check the logo on the front and it'll tell you got a different version. We started this about a year ago, I want to say, with 24.4. Started adding letters to the end, so it's a lot easier to tell if you're actually, current on the on whatever the latest update is, just at a glance on the screen. So just the logo changes, right? So easy stuff. All right, let's talk about something else that I get a lot of questions about, as to, can we add this to the tool and that sort of thing? And that is dark mode. We get tons of comments on it all the time. I've gotten a few questions on it. Every tool except for the Zeus, since it runs Windows, and that's just a little bit different way to make the software do dark mode, I guess, for lack of a better term, right? Two different operating systems. So on the non-Windows based tools, some of them even shipped with it. So like Triton D10s, when they first shipped out, they shipped in dark mode by default. Not sure if they do. Well, they don't ship Triton D10s anymore. They ship regular Tritons, but um, there is a way to switch it from light mode to dark mode. And I'm going to show you how to do that right this second. So let's talk about that. Let me pull up my Triton here and get it on the screen. There we go. All right, so on a non-Windows based tool, you're going to want to go into the Tools menu, and then you're going to want to go into Settings, and then you want to go into System Settings, and then Display. In Display, you see right here we have Color Theme. Now, in this case, it's set to Day Theme, so if I click on that, I can choose Night Theme, and there's my dark mode, right? Some people like dark mode better. I know I like dark mode better, especially on my computer. So that's your night theme. Also in there, we got high contrast toolbar. If you want to change the toolbar up a little bit, there's one going one way. There's one going the other way. And then the default has the like the brushed sheet metal look to it. Also have normal or bold font. So bold just makes it a little bit bigger. And then as far as font size, this was really designed for like the MT2600 where the screen is kind of small. 7-inch screen. Makes it a little easier to see, right? You put it in normal. And then down here we have the backlight time. So when my screen is on, when does the backlight dim, right? So 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, 60 seconds, or just always leave the thing on. So whatever your preference is for that, just leave it at that. And then, of course, to change back, we'll go to color theme, and we'll go to day theme, and we're back the way we were, right? Easy enough. So that was tools, settings. So tools, settings, system settings, display. And then it's all in there. Easy enough. Okay. Quick and dirty. Next thing I want to talk about is kind of alluded to it at the top there is data services, right? So we have these multitude of information that you can access as long as you have a current software and you have a Wi-Fi connection, and that will get you access to any of the things that your tool supports. So some of them shall SureTrack, some of it's SureTrack and Intelligent Diagnostics. Some of them most of them it's a Snap-on Cloud, and all of them would be Security Link, right? So all of these things are considered data services. What's another thing that's a data service? Well, sharing your pre and post scans. Actually, doing the pre and post scans, has nothing to do with it, but it will automatically upload to the Snap-on Cloud. Now, if you don't have a Snap-on Cloud account, I would strongly encourage you to do so, as it is free. And it gives you a place to put your pre-scans, post-scans, screenshots, things of that nature. Plus, without it, you're not able to link up to the Security Link service for the secure gateways. This pre and post scans can be viewed and shared on your phone, tablet, laptop, desktop, PC, Mac, Linux, doesn't matter. As long as it's got a web browser, should be able to do that. Maybe even there might even be a refrigerator out there that has a web. I'm sure there's a refrigerator out there with a web browser on. So even share them from your fridge, right? So that's the beauty of having the Altus Drive or the Snap-on Cloud or the personal account there, because it automatically backs these files up, right? So if you don't have an account, you can go to altusdrive.com and then create an individual account. Or if you have an account and you want to manage it, you can go to manage existing account. Or if you want to see your files, you can just log in. And we'll talk more about that in a minute when I go live. I'll pull it up on the web and we can take a look at it. Now let's talk about SureTrack. Right? So SureTrack is what we call the fastest path to fix. Right? So this is our experience-based information. Right? This started a long time ago, like over 30 years ago as Ask-A-Tech, and even before that, really. But there are tens of millions of real fix tips that you can access from the tool. And they're laid out in a complaint cause correction format. So, here's what the customer complaint was. Here's what actually caused it. Here's what was done. And then here's what finally fixed the problem at the end. So we will have the number one real fixes there. And then any related real fixes are also accessible. So, and they're ranked by number of confirmed fixes. So in this case, 72 down to 1. And why do we put that little 1 in there? Because maybe that's the thing that'll help you fix your own car that you're working on, right? Because it's not always the most common thing. Yeah, obviously more often it's the most common thing because it's the most common thing. But there can be those little onesies and twosies, those little weird one-offs. It's like, oh, I didn't think about that. Let me check that. Oh, and sure enough, there it is. Also in here, here's an example of one of those articles there, right? So it's a 2015 Jeep Grand Cherokee with a U code. Gotta love those U codes. U0403, invalid data received from the transfer case module. You go into the article, we got it expanded here a little bit. It says, before condemning the vehicle's transfer case module, it is advised to check the ground strap for the anti-lock brake module. It has been reported in the field that a population of Grand Cherokees left the factory with the ground strap not fully tightened, maybe made on last shift on a Friday or something. There have been several cases where tightening this ground connection resolves the problem. And you'd think, okay, so I have a code for the transfer case, but it's actually being caused by the ABS module not being grounded properly. So you never know with these electrical problems, right? So that'd be an easy enough thing to fix right up in the fender well. Pretty easy to get to. Pretty easy to check. All right, now we get to probably the most visible thing that's been around for a fair amount of time. And it shows up at the top of the code scan screen on like a Solus. And this is the top repairs graph. So like I said, it's been around for a while. Based on billions of repair events, over 8 billion repair events, I believe we're up to now. And it's going to give you failures over mileage. So if we see there, replace mass airflow sensor was the fix for this code. And it happened most commonly at 125,000 miles with about, looks like 44, 45 incidences there. And then the 166 would be the entire over the entire span there, right? So 166, 125,000. Also, if you have a scan tool that is currently up to date and it is associated with your technician account that we just talked about, you have access to like a light version of ShopKey, as long as that tool is tied to your account there. So you would log in with your username and password from your tech account. And then it gives you, this is one of the bigger things I think is the top 10 list, right? So it's based on however many repair records we have for that particular vehicle, your make, model, engine. And it's going to give you top 10 components, top 10 codes, and top 10 symptoms, and then top 10 things that people have looked up using the software. In this case, we can see there might be a little bit of a theme running here. So number 1 symptom, AC and up. Number 3 replaced component, air conditioning refrigerant, 26,000 times on a 10-year-old vehicle at this point. Pads and rotors are pretty common. AC refrigerant, definitely not common. And then AC condenser, number 6, 11,000 times. And then over here, condenser. All right. So it looks like we may have a condenser issue with this truck. And yeah, there sure is. If you click on like the AC condenser, it will bring up a TSB that says, yeah, they're prone to cracking. And they're not in the best spot behind the grill either. So, but if you didn't know that, you could inform the customer and say, hey, how's your air conditioning working? Would you like us to check it for you while we're here? Because these are known to have air conditioning problems. And then you could just go from there, right? So pretty helpful. Also have the causes and fixes in there. We call it ProView. So what this does is it takes the same data from that graph we showed earlier. That graph only applies to single code. In this case, this applies to single codes or multiple combinations of codes. Because the more information you throw at something, the better you can drill down as to what the actual cause is. So in this case, PO171 could be all these things, and they're ranked over here. Or if I have a cat code and a lean code, then most likely it's an oxygen sensor. 40 times that happened, right, in that combination. It looks like pretty much all other roads lead to the oxygen sensor. But thought it's kind of a unique visualization of the data, right? So we have all this data. Why not use it, right? So here's another example. This is, I'm sorry. This is the example of the community page. So you would get access to that community page as well through shopkeypro.com. And this is like a forum, right? So it's a user forum, and they'll say, okay, here's what the customer's complaint is. Here's what we have done so far, as me asking the question. Here's what I've done so far on this vehicle. What should I look at? And then once there's answers, you can choose the best answer or whatever fixed the vehicle answer, and they'll call it the best answer. It says you may want to perform a voltage drop on both battery cables. Sometimes internal corrosion cannot be seen. We've been tested, found resistance to be high. And then corrected by replacing the battery cables, clean battery terminals. Truck now starts consistently, and that's now a searchable article that you would be able to benefit from as well. And once again, that is no code on that one either. So pretty interesting that. And there's tons of that information out there, right? In our user forums and stuff, and in our tools. I like to say we've been doing AI since before AI was cool, right? Because that's kind of what that is, right? It's a large language, or not a large language model. Let's say a computer learning model, and we are able to use it for good, for good purposes, to help you fix cars, right? That's a good thing. Let me back out of that and start that one again, just so I can start from the top. All right, so we'll go to altusdrive.com. And like I said, if you don't have an account, you can click on create an individual account. If you have an existing account and you just want to manage the information there, you can go there. Otherwise, you can just log in and that'll bring you to your uploads, right? So it looks like I was already plugged in there. And there's my uploads, right? So I did this from my class, the class earlier tonight. So vehicle system report, it's going to tell you, here's your pre-scan, right? And that's how you access those. Now, from here, they recently added in the last few months or so, I'd say, these 9 squares up here next to your little face there. It might be hidden behind my head too, depending on where you're watching. But if I click on it, it gives me links to any of your Snap-on accounts you might have. So Altus Drive, ShopKey Pro, Protoman, Truck Series, Sun Collision, notifications, support, device management, security link, tech profile, and shop profile. So if you have ShopKey or Mitchell, like an account with ShopKey or Mitchell, you would have a shop profile associated with that, and that's the username and password for that. But in order to use any of the other things, like on Altus Drive, you do need an individual technician profile, even if you're a shop owner, just because it has to be linked to a person, not a business entity, right? And that's just for certain stipulations on like the security and stuff like that. So if I wanted to go to, say, security link on my profile, I will enter my password. And I'm already logged in, so I'll log out. There we go. And then it'll drop me on my security link tab on my profile, right? So like I said, I would strongly suggest you set up a profile. You can put in your information, any notifications you have, shop information. This would print out on the top of forms, like your pre and post scans. There we go. Device management. This is where you would link any of your scan tools. So in the tools menu on the scan tool, there's a get connected button, and it'll give you the information you'd need. So you hit add device, put in the device's serial number, pin, and code, and then name it, and then your new device would be linked to your account at that point. And then we have security link down here. So you'll notice I have FCA, Mercedes, Nissan, Volkswagen, and also says who manages that. So those 3 are managed by AutoAuth, and then Volkswagen is globally is managed by us. So Snap-on Total Shop Solutions is what that means, and we take care of those SFD tokens in the background, right? So you don't have to worry about it. Any help setting it up? We got videos right there, and then you could delete them, you can edit them, add them. If you did need a quick link to AutoAuth, you can click on it to bring it right over to AutoAuth. With it also, if I went to say edit it, you got to plug in your username and password, and then you got to check the 2 boxes, and then you hit save. And we also double check and make sure your username and password works. Sometimes people forget their passwords, or they change their passwords on AutoAuth because they forgot their password and they logged to AutoAuth first. Change their password, and then they come back, and then they wonder why the tool's still not communicating. It's because you got to change the password over here too. It's not like a 2-way street, right? You got to enter it in. But that is there's a lot of good stuff that can be had from your technician profile manager. Allows you to do a lot of different things with that. So, like I said, if you don't have one, might be a good idea to have one. Oh yeah, by the way, and if I wanted to share, like say this vehicle system report, I can click on the link, and I can send it via email or copy it to the clipboard. If I was on a phone, I could send it by text message as well. So, a lot of helpful things there. A lot of helpful things. All right, let's pull the presentation back up. There we go. All right, next thing I'd like to discuss is service resets and relearns. So this is available on any of our Windows-based tools that are currently still updatable in Apollo and Triton. So basically anything with Intelligent Diagnostics plus the Veris Edge. It is a submenu on there on the main menu. It's going to be here, service resets and relearns. In this case, there are 67 available. And what it does is it takes any of the resets, relearns, recalibrations that need to be done on the vehicle, brings them all into one place by job. So I'm going to go through, look and see, hey, is this a job that I did? And then it'll bring you in there and it'll pull up any related information you might need. So let's say we went in there and I replaced the oxygen sensor on this Tahoe. 06 and newer GM vehicles, most of them, you need to reset the oxygen sensor heater circuit. Otherwise, you're going to blow out the new sensor because it learns over time how much current to apply. You got to reset it back to factory. So if you go in there, pulls it up, not only does it pull up the heater learn, it also pulls up the different bidirectional controls that are related to that as well. So bank 1 sensor 1, bank 1 sensor 2, and that's just the bidirectional heater on off or pulse width on that. Also has links to TSB's bulletins, recalls, and campaigns for that oxygen sensor, as well as the top repairs graph. So let's look at how that looks on the tool. I'm going to pull up my Zeus here to do that. And I'll pull up my Tahoe. Okay, so in this case, 67, right? Now on this Tahoe, and many like it, there is a brake pedal position sensor. It is not a brake light switch. It is a brake pedal position sensor that they use. And when you replace it, you need to make sure you relearn it in 2 modules, 2 different places, one in the engine and one in the body. So in order to do that, we'd go into engine, and then we'd have to go to functional tests, and then I don't see it listed here. So is it a module setup perhaps? No, not in there. Output controls maybe. Yep, there it is right there. BPP sensor learn, right? So you don't always know where everything is. And especially on nowadays, can be hard to find sometimes on some manufacturers. Key on engine off, transition to Parker neutral, hit continue. Then we hit learn, and then we're done. Then I got to go into the body control module. Find that. Functional tests. Is it a special function? No. Is it output controls? Yes, it is right here. Brake pedal position sensor learn. The parking brake, start the learn procedure, make sure it's off. Hit learn, done. Easy. But many, many, many button presses, and I had to find it. That takes time. Otherwise, we can just go into service resets, and we can come down to brakes, and then replace your learn brake pedal position sensor there. I open it up. There's the one from the engine. There's the one from the body control module. So it brings them both in the same place. So I can just do this. Oops. Hit the right button. And then this. And hit the right button. And there we go. We're done. Didn't have to find them in the modules. Didn't have to go to those modules. So big time saver, I would say. Worth a cursory glance to see, hey, did I do any of these things on this car? And maybe I might need to reset something. All right. Pretty good to know. All right. That is service reset. Let's minimize this. Maximize this. Next one counts for any fast-track intelligent diagnostic capable tools. So your Zeuses, your Tritons, and your Apollos, right? So those are the 3 tools that have the fast-track intelligent diagnostic troubleshooting workflow. What it does is it links problems to solutions. It enables you to complete the repair quickly and confidently. It begins with retrieving a code and then lays out the most productive workflow for that code, right? So it gives us a repeatable diagnostic workflow. So we got codes with full descriptions. We also have a drop-down menu up here. This little arrow there allows me to switch between codes, and then the information refreshes. A lot of people don't even realize that's there. I'll show you that in a minute. Also a top repairs graph and filtered TSBs, right? So instead of possibly in this case on this BMW, you had 654 TSBs. When filtered down to the one code we're looking at, there we go. It pulls up the one TSB that was available. Going down the screen, next thing I might want to check is data. So it takes all the data on the computer, filters it down, and then gives us just what we need for that particular code. So in this case, we were looking on a Volkswagen. There were 404 PIDs available. Fast Track Intelligent Diagnostics brought it down to 3 because we only needed to look at 3 PIDs. All the rest of the stuff was just noise, so it filters out the noise. Functional tests gives us filtered functional tests, same deal. So let's say I had 482 available functional tests on this Camry. I only need to worry about 6 to solve the problem. Guided component tests, same deal. There's 8 million guided component tests inside the tool. And then on this Silverado, there were 395 individual component tests available. Fast Track filtered it down to 10. So I don't have to mess around with all this noise that I don't care about. And then at the bottom, it integrates that SureTrack content, right? So we talked about the real fixes, related real fixes, and troubleshooter earlier. Right? So adds all that in there. So it's really just taking that top and bottom information, adding a lot of extra stuff in there. This is based on, the data is based on over 400 billion PIDs that we have. So this is, for lack of a better term, it's AI, right? So it's our version of AI, and we've been doing it for 9 years, publicly anyway. We were working on it, obviously, before that to get it ready for public consumption. But I like to say we've been doing AI before AI was cool. But a lot of talk out there about AI these days, especially when it comes to diagnosing cars. So interesting stuff. Let's talk about it. So we'll go in here, pull up my Tahoe again. And then we'll do a code scan since it starts with codes. There we go. We got 2 codes there. Wait for it to finish. There we go. Saves it. Saves it to the tool, uploads it to the cloud automatically. There's a misfire right there. If I hit diagnose, and there's my information. Now remember how I said I could switch back and forth right here? Little arrow next to the code. Allows me to switch back and forth, and you'll see the information changes based on what the code is. So let's see, we got 2 TSBs. That's the first thing I want to check anytime I got a code, right? You ever worked at a dealership, you get it. All right, so in this case, it's possible missing clip on a spark plug wire, and it affects all these different vehicles. So if the clip is missing, it can be loose, and that's on the coil end, by the way. Usually when you check for a misfire, you're going to check the plug end, right? Not necessarily the coil end right away. So if I see this and I see the clip missing, that's probably good first place to check. Okay. Next one's going to be my graph, right? So in this case, 1,053 times over 200,000 miles was replaced. The spark plug was the solution, and it looks like the majority of the time it was around 100K. Right? Fuel injector could be throttle body, intake manifold, gasket, etc. So it kind of ranks up to top to bottom. Next is smart data. So if I click on that, it's going to give me a list. It's definitely not as many as you would normally get, just going in the engine data by itself. And you'll see that I got a beep, and I got a red flag, and I got a red flag. So if I click on that, you can see that's where it tripped at number 1. And then all the other PIDs will have a dotted line at the same point in time. That allows me to see how did this one, when it failed, affect this one, right? So and it does it all automatically. Like I said, it's based on over 400 billion PIDs that we go through and use machine learning and figure out how, pattern failures and things like that. Next one's functional tests and resets. So based on the code, based on the vehicle, what tests might I need to use? So you can see it's like injector on and off, compression, crank variation. All the other tests are available down below. It's not like we filter them out completely, but we give you a nice, concise list up top. And same thing with guided component tests, crank, cam, ECM, ignition, and then the rest are down here, all available. And if we go down the bottom, there's that SureTrack information. Fixed it 219 times. Click on this one, we only got 2. Troubleshooter information, it's going to tell you usually code set criteria and tech tips. And then if you have a Zeus with an active ShopKey or Mitchell subscription, you can link your credentials, load that repair information right from the scan tool. It's going to bring the vehicle through, we're going to bring the code through, you can do a search, and there's all the information that I need. Even the wiring diagrams, right? Do the wiring diagram right from the driver's seat of the car. Open it up. Take a look. Pre-highlighted wires, all that good stuff. If I wanted to find this ground, for example, and click on that component locator. There it is right there. G130, that one. Back of the driver's side cylinder head. So, and I never had to leave the car. I never had to leave the scan tool at that point. I'm just doing this on the scan tool. Lovely. All right. So that is Fast Track. Next is one of my favorite features on the tool. Not that I don't like all these other functions too, but I'm a big scope guy. I like using the scope. And call me lazy, but I would really like to have the scope do most of the work for me, like set it up and tell me where to plug it in and what should good look like and all that. And that's what guided component tests are for. Scanner is a directional tool, right? It's a compass. It's going to point you in the right direction, show you where you need to go. But in order to pinpoint the actual problem, that's going to be using guided component tests, and that's going to enable us to pinpoint the actual problem. There's actually over 8 million guided component tests now, and there are classes built in as well. So school in the tool, we like to call it. So it tells us how to hook it up, where to hook it up, and what it should look like on the screen. So we have the operation of it, the look at the harness, what each wire on that harness does, what the color of the wire is, and even we have known goods, right? So in a signature test, you're going to have a known good there. Compare it to that, and you'll know if the component is faulty before you go to purchase it, right? So that's a wonderful thing. Test, don't guess, as we say. So let's go live again. This time, I'll pull up a Kia. It's got some cool stuff in there. We'll go to guided component tests. And we got ABS, body, electrical, engine, and transmission. There could be up to 12 different categories. Depends on how much we've worked on the vehicle over the years and such. But I'm going to go to engine in this case. And let's say we want to do a cam sensor. And we'll go to location images. This one has location images. And there we go. It is over there, kind of near this intake. And then there it is, a lot closer detail. Now, in real life, on the screen of the tool, it'd be a lot bigger. It's just because I have it projecting on my desktop here. So they're a little hard to see on this demonstration. But in real life on the tool, they're much bigger. And then let's say we want to do a signature test. There is the connector. There's what each wire in the connector does. There's the color. And then if I come down, there's my known good pattern. Now, if I want to hit view meter, it's going to automatically set the voltage where it needs to be, automatically sets the time where it needs to be, and then I can scroll up this information and I can see the pattern. So if I was hooked up, I'm not hooked up right now, I'd be able to see a pattern here and compare it to this and see if they match. Easy enough. It's really good information. Like I said, there's over 8 million tests in there. It goes back to 1981. I did see a video, it's a couple months old, but I did see a video the other day where someone was talking about, well, go in here, get the settings, then go into LabScope and then plug those settings in. Because I think one of the most common misconceptions about guided component tests is I can't do anything here. I can't change the settings. I can't do anything. And that is 100% not true. If I want to make it bigger, I can hit meter, makes it full screen. If I want to come down here to my settings, I can do all the same settings. I can turn on 4 channels. I can change what probe I got. I can change the voltage. I can change the sweep time. I can change all the normal things I could change in a scope, but I can change them in here inside the guided component test, and I don't have to worry about going back and forth, writing them down, that sort of thing. It just saves all those extra steps, right? So it's right there. Get in and go. Just plug it in where it tells you to do it, and you should get something on the screen. And that's a beautiful thing. All right. Oh, I forgot to talk about the classes too. So if you don't have a car loaded and you go into guided component test, you will have classes available in the very first option. If you go in there, we got power user test, features and benefits, and how to. And then in there, we have things like 10-minute electronics classes, 15-minute NOx emissions class, tire pressure monitoring system, etc. All sorts of different things. 20-minute DPF class. All sorts of different things you can learn about. Just kind of sit down. How about FlexRay bus? Go through there. It's going to tell you how it works. That's going to look like that. Very good. Very good. All right, so that's a guided component test. And last thing we'll talk about is scan data features, and this is across the board. All of our tools have these functions in there. And the two functions I want to talk about are custom data list, also custom data list across lists, and then also PID triggers, right? So if we go in, we can make a custom list across different data lists. So many manufacturers have it where they have, you go into the engine control module, and there's like 6 or 7 different data groups. And you want, maybe I want some data from this group and some data from that group and some data from that group and put them all together. Well, you can do that on those brands of vehicles that support it. So in this case, engine management, we got a couple of them picked there. And you can pick throughout. Then you'll save it, and then you'll have a much smaller list. The makes that support this: Acura, BMW, Chrysler, Dodge, Ford, Honda, Jeep, Lexus, Mazda, Mercedes, Nissan, Ram, Scion, Subaru, and Toyota. And those are just the ones where their ECU supports it, and they have multiple data groups, perhaps, because I know there's some OEMs out there that just do one big old data group and that's it. And obviously you can't do it across lists because there's only one list. So these are the manufacturers that support it. Also, PID triggers. So what PID triggers do is you set the maximum value and the minimum value. If the PID ever exceeds that value, it will throw a line on the screen. It will save it. It will beep. It will turn this flag red. When the flag is red, you will get a red line wherever it exceeded the problem. So you can see that right there. And then I will show you right here how that works. First one we'll do it on is the Triton. So this would be any of our non-Windows based tools, from the MT2600, the Solus, the Modus, the Triton, any of those tools, you can do this. So I'm going to go in the scanner and go pull up my Camry. That one has it. Okay, demo mode. And I'm going to go into engine, and then I want to go to data display. There we go. There's my different categories of data, or my different lists of data. Also notice there's a custom list up there. So that is left over from last class when I made a custom list in the last class. I'm going to make a new one. So let's go to engine data. And it is going to pull up. Let's put that back to list. I'm going to pull up all these PIDs. Many of them I probably don't need for whatever it is I'm doing. So in order to fix this or change it, we go up to the check mark up there. And then we uncheck engine data, because that would just select all the data in there. Which looks like there's 100 PIDs. Open it up. We'll pick a couple different ones. Open this one up. Pick a couple different ones. Maybe this one. And when you're done and happy with your list, you don't want to hit the back button, because that'll just take you out of it and you lose all your work. You can go here with the check mark, that saves it. And now I have these 5 PIDs. Easy enough. Now, say I wanted to do that PID trigger function. I'm going to put it into a graph to make it easier. We'll do 4 graphs. All right. And then we'll look in here. Let's say we wanted to do it on, and we'll do engine speeds, fine. Highlight whichever one you want. And then you'll come up here with the squiggly line with an arrow above it. Hit set trigger. It's going to give you a visualization of where you want your trigger at. I'm going to pull that down a little bit so it will trigger. I'll hit continue over here. So I'll use the arrows to navigate. Come over here to continue. And then I want to set my minimum. I'll go a little below so it doesn't trigger off of that one. Hit continue. And now I have 2 gray lines. There's my upper range. There's my lower range. Then I got to go back here. And I'm going to hit arm triggers. They're going to turn purple. And then once it goes past it here in a second, there we go. It will put a red line through it. It says here is where it triggered. And then it'll put a green line across all the other ones to let you know, okay, when this one failed, how did this one fail? Did it make it fail? Or did it not get affected at all? And if we wait another, and I was about to say, if we wait another second, it's going to save it for us automatically. So it shows you what happened before the trigger, at the trigger, and then a little bit after the trigger so you can see if things got worse, better, that sort of thing. Saves it to the tool. It can be viewed on the tool. It can be viewed in our free software called ShopStream Connect as well. All right, so that is on the non-Windows tool. Now we'll pull up the Zeus and do the same thing. Pull up my Camry. And we'll go into engine and data and engine data 1. All right, so there's all my data. All right, all the data. Now, if I wanted to customize this, we go to where it says custom. And then I'll uncheck that, and then I'll just go through and check a few. And when it's already been checked off, it'll show as such. Then I can go to list view or graph view. I'm going to go to list view. And then there they are, in 7 PIDs. Right. Easy enough. Now, if I wanted to do the same thing, I am going to look at one of these PIDs that moves. All right, 750, 759. So if I want to do this, I can go over to the dots, go to setup, and my trigger. Okay, and then you want to make sure that they're armed after you save it. So no flashy is armed, flashy is not armed. Save. You can see they're not armed because I was flashing down here. And wait for it to go up. There we go. Arm them. There we go. Triggered. And then I got a red line. And then it saves it. And if I want to come down here, you're going to see that graph has a dotted red line and that has a solid red line. Solid red line is where it triggered. Dotted red line is where it would correspond with the other data. Now, also, you see that didn't take very long after the trigger in order for it to save. So if you want to change that, you can go to where it says properties, and you can go from right at trigger, it'll save it, up to 100 samples after trigger to save it. So pretty helpful. All right. And that is get the most out of your Snap-on Scan tool. This is a bit longer than usual. Like we're almost at 45 minutes, but I think it's good stuff. And like I said, I could go on and on and on. Maybe we can do a sequel or threequel or whatever to this. But hopefully it picked up a few little tips and tricks that you might not have known or forgot that you knew, and put them back into play tomorrow in the bay. And with that, that's our time here today. So make sure you tune in for new diagnostic content every week. We'll be premiering a new video every Wednesday at 7 p.m. UK time, so make sure to check it out here on our YouTube channel. Please make sure you also subscribe, thumbs up, and ring that little notification bell so you'll know anytime we post new content. With that, time for questions. Now, if you have any questions, once again, if you're watching this on the premiere, just leave it in the live chat and we'll do our best to answer those. Otherwise, leave a comment under the video and we'll get to those as we monitor those comments as well. So I'd like to thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your day to learning a little bit more about how you might be able to be more efficient at diagnosing vehicles using some of the information that we've been giving you today. Hopefully we'll see you next week, and we'll see you on any of our other videos. Have a good week, have a good night, and take care.